Hello there, I'm Jorge, and if you're watching this video, this is actually an idea which I have had with after talking to some people of sharing some information of what I have learned in quite some years of development, being that professionally or also as a hobby, as a kind of a freelancer that I am. And it's the first video of hopefully a series of videos which I will make sharing basic knowledge of what you need to start developing if you are really starting from zero, from scratch. And this specific one is about tools. So we will not be programming or anything. It's just about the basic tool set that you will need as a, let's say, freelance developer or future developer. We will talk about a good code editor. We will talk about versioning system, and we will talk about collaboration. So for that, let's get into my browser to show the three tools that I will present in this video. The first one is this editor is called Visual Studio Code. This is from Microsoft. It's the same company that does, for example, the whole Microsoft Visual Studio IDE or Visual Studio environment, which is a quite heavy package. There is also a free version of that, but it's a bit heavier. It's very directed into programming in .NET or the types of packages that Microsoft offers. This tool is open source. It's very useful. Has a lot of things that you can do with it. It's very powerful. Later on in this video, I will show some of the things that you can do with it. For the moment, I would just recommend you go to codevisualstudio.com. The links are below the video, and download it, install it. I am using a Mac. If you're using a Windows PC, just install it. It's kind of the same thing, and you're good to go. Then the next thing that I want you to go and download and install is Git. Git is the de facto standard for versioning, which is used today. In the past, we used to have things like Subversion, which exists still. There are things like VSS and other stuff, but Git has established as really one of the most used or most widely used tools for versioning that are there available. For the Mac users, just something that you have to know. Don't try to install it with Homebrew or Mac ports first if you are really new to installing stuff. Installing Homebrew and Mac ports is kind of a science by itself, and you have to go through many steps to achieve that. So go to this binary installer from Tim Harper. It is quite easy, works perfectly, and just installs your Git. That is if your Mac has not Git installed. Actually, that's one thing you can do. I will tell you later in the video how to check if Git is already available in your machine. And the third thing that you have to do, you can visit this page, which is the GitHub page, and sign up for a free account. You just need your mail. You get a full page with a lot of repositories that you can add. It's really a cool thing to collaborate. It's also kind of the de facto place to go for if you want to later on collaborate with open source softwares, you want to check code written by other developers and developers and so on. So those are the three things, and we will go first installing Visual Studio, which I think should be quite straightforward. I will not really show it in the video. Then installing Git and checking or checking if it's already installed. And that's pretty much it. So for the installation, so as I said before, I will not go through the installation of Visual Studio Code. I think that's pretty straightforward. If you're in Mac, it will download a DMG file. You can install it. Just nothing to show there that you shouldn't know if you are proficient using a PC. And for Windows, same thing. Download the installer, install it, and you can start it anytime. For Git, As I said before, try to use the binary installer for Mac if you're downloading it for Mac. Windows, the same thing, it's also an installer. If you want to check if Git is already installed in your machine, open a terminal and write this command here, git ---- version, and then you should get the version installed. In my case, it is version 2.24.3, and that's it. So you're ready to go. And Visual Studio Code, you can start it from the usual way you start programs in your PC, so by having an icon or whatever. But there is also one really cool thing that you can start it also from the command line. And in my case, and this is actually the start also of our project, where I will show you how to use Git, how to use Visual Studio Code and so on. We can do just create a directory where we will put some pseudo code. We will not program anything in this video, but we will do some text files and changes in those text files. So for that, let's start and do create a directory here and here, dev basics, and then we change cd to dev basics. There we are. And when we are in this directory and I want to start coding with Studio Code, I can say code dot, and then it will open Visual Studio, and you can actually start. Let me rearrange this quite a bit so that it fits my recording screen. Okay, that's it. So now we're in Visual Studio Code. You have all the usual stuff. You can create new files, you can do anything. The way you work usually in Visual Studio Code is that you open a directory, and then it shows every file. In this left-hand side, it will show all the files that you have in that directory. You can create files, you can create folders, anything here. So you could say, okay, I want to create a new file called my code file dot, let's say that's a text file at the moment, and then it really opens and you can start writing stuff in here. Then you can also say, okay, I want to have a new folder here called my folder, and then within that folder I want to have a new file, whatever, my other file dot text, and then you have the other file there. And then it shows everything. It has kind of a nice coloring and so on, so it's quite powerful, as said. One of the things that you want to look about Visual Studio Code is these extensions here. There is a huge amount of things that you can install. There is also a huge amount of videos of what you should install or you shouldn't install, and all the things that you want to do. For this first video, we will not install any extension, but you are free to go there and you can actually search for anything. Like, for example, if you are writing some HTML and you just put HTML here, and then you see all the extensions that can help you with color coding, with anything about HTML, for anything else that you are doing. And that's quite useful. It's quite a nice thing to have. Usually we have here the file explorer, where you can see how is my structure, where are my open files and so on. You can search stuff throughout the whole directory here. This is a graphical version of Git. We will learn first the command lines, because I think first you have to know the command lines and what you are doing with Git before you understand how to use a graphical version of it. There are some debuggers that you can attach on GitHub. These are the extensions. Then in my case, I have some Angular extensions installed also for GitHub and so on and so forth. So there are many things that you can do with this editor, and you can go and search for many videos on Visual Studio Code. I really recommend this editor. Is quite powerful. The big advantage of Visual Studio Code is the fact that you can have a terminal in the code open, and we will use this right now to practice with our Git commands and to show you how the basic Git commands are. I will show you really only a very, very small subset of what Git can do. Git can do a lot of more things, but I think for the beginning, when you're starting, you're kind of overwhelmed if I show you everything that you can do with branches and stashes and whatever. So we will just do some simple commits and going back to our previous version, going back to our main version. And later on, we will connect that to GitHub so that we can push our things to GitHub so that a colleague or yourself in another computer can pull these things and then work from another place. So for that, we need to open a terminal. So you can use the menu of Visual Studio Code. You can also use these key shortcuts. And one of the things that you can do also is just go down here and slide a little bit up the terminal from below, and then you get a prompt. Your prompt will look a bit different from mine. I just hide it a little bit and it only says my Mac. Good. Now I have a complete kind of development environment just in Visual Studio Code, and I want to start programming and using Git. So let's start with adding just a file. So let's add, this is my code. In our case, it's only a text file. We will not do any code here. So that's my text file. And then let's say I started coding, and then this is my main file in any language, like, I don't know, Python or JavaScript. Okay, that's it. That's my first file. Then I can save it with Command S, Control S, or with the menu, however you prefer. And now it's time to start versioning. So I want to keep track of this directory with Git. So I can go here to the terminal, and the first thing that I have to tell Git is, please start tracking this file. So what I do is I do git init, and with this command, it says, okay, it has started in user dev basics git. So it actually, what it did is it created a directory called .git. If I do an ls-all here, you will see I have a file called mycode.txt, and I have this directory called .git, and there it will just maintain some copies of the files that I do and some other stuff. You don't have to worry about what is in this .git directory. Just if you don't want to lose your tracking and versioning, just don't delete that directory ever. That's actually it. So I started tracking my directory, but actually I have not told Git anything what it has to do with what it wants to do with or what it should do with my files, I have to say. So let's do that. So let's say, okay, Git, please add this file here to the files that I want to track in my versioning system. So I git add my code, and that's it. Then if I say, okay, I want to committing is kind of, okay, I have made some changes in my file, and then I want to commit it. So then I say git, please commit my file. I can put a message. This is kind of the standard what you do, and this is my first commit. So that's the first thing that I have versioned now. So it says, okay, one file changed. It tells me kind of the ID of my commit. This is this one. There is a bigger one also used, but this is first committed. So that's a good thing. And then if I say git log, then it will tell me what it has done. So this is my name. So this is the commit. There's a huge ID. There is a head. This is kind of, okay, this is the version that is kind of actual at the moment. And it is the master, that's the name of a branch. This is actually a name that is not used anymore, and in the future versions of Git, it will be changed by main, just to be, let's say, politically correct. Or this is master has kind of a bad significance, so like master slaves and stuff like that. And this is my commentary, which I did first commit. So that's what I have done. And let's say now I want to change something, so I don't like this is just one line. So I would say, okay, let's put it in 2 lines, and then any other language. I did some changes here, right? So, okay. Then I save my file again. And then I want to tell Git, okay, do a new version of that file. Then I can say, okay, Git add again my file here, and Git commit with a message, change it, my code file. Let's let my code with, okay. So one file changed, everything is done. Visual Studio helps you with some coloring of the files, showing you kind of green and bright means everything is good, and then less bright is kind of, okay, this file is not committed yet, and red is kind of there is problems and so on. So this is kind of cool also. If I go into a Git log again, you will see we have now, let me put this a bit bigger. We have our first commit before, and now we have a second commit, which I changed my file. And now let's say, oh, I want to look back where my file was at this first commit. So actually I can copy, it's part of this ID what you need, but you can copy the whole ID. Let's copy that with Control C or Command C in Mac. And let's say git checkout that ID. And when I hit enter, you will see that this file changes to the version that I had before. So now you see the file has changed. So this is actually the version of my file at that time. And now I am in a kind of a strange situation because I checked out. So the file that is showing that is actually in my PC now is the old one. But Git has some security things that it will not let me now commit this file. If I say, okay, Git commit my new changes, commit -m, so this is a message, my new changes. If I try to do this, it says no, head is detached, so you are not, you have nothing to commit, because actually this checkout is more meant to, okay, go and look back the things and then go back to the head, to the present version that you have. You can do a branch from that version if you want, but this is kind of an advanced topic for Git, which we will cover maybe later. So to go back to my head version, to my present version, I can say git switch and the dash. So it's kind of, okay, go back to, take me back home, and then it says, okay, I am again in the head position, first commit, switch back to master. And if you paid a lot of attention when I did this checkout, it is telling me exactly what I have to do. If I want to go back if I want to undo this checkout, I can do this. If I want to do a new branch, I could also do this. So Git command line helps you a lot, also if you're a beginner, and if you know how to read and you take your time to read the things, then you know what is to be done. So now we're back in the head, and then let's say I want to do a new folder with let's say files. So files, I can type then, and then I do a new file here, my older code.txt, say, okay. And now here, okay, this could be, for example, a module of your app. All these things that keep appearing when I type are kind of the extensions that I have that try to match what I am typing with some kind of language, programming language that I have installed extensions for, and so please ignore that. That's just something that I have. So I save this file, and now you see there is a small U here. That's kind of, oh, this is unversioned. So I actually could now go here back and say, okay, git add, then files, then my other file. But actually, if you have a lot of files that you have been creating and so on, then you want to actually add everything. Then you can say git add dot. Dot is, okay, add this directory to my version, and then it adds it. And in my next commit, if I say git commit added files, then in my next commit it says, okay, one changed, one insertion, it created these files, my other code. Now all the files are not with this U anymore, they are all nice and clean, and they are all committed to the versioning system. This whole thing is done locally in your computer, so actually if you lose your computer or if you have some problem, you will lose everything. And that's actually the next part which I want to talk about, which will be connecting this whole thing with GitHub. And for that, you have to first create an account in GitHub. And I think I will not do any tutorial for that. I think this is something you do anyway. It's kind of creating an account in any type of web-based service. What I will do is I will go to my account, I will create a repository in GitHub, and then we will try to synchronize this with that repository. Now in the last part of this video, I will try to explain how GitHub works and how you can upload your code to a GitHub to be able to share it with other developers or pull it in another machine or whatever you want. So first of all, you have created an account in GitHub, so you should see a similar page to this one. You will not have so many repositories as I have, but in principle it's the same. There are two things, two buttons here. One is this read the guide button, which shows you a very in-depth information on how to set up Git, create a repository. It's a very, very comprehensive description, so it goes well beyond of what I've covered in this video, so it's recommended reading for you if you want to get a little bit more know-how how this whole thing with Git and versioning and GitHub works. The other button is the new button where you can create a new repository. When you click this one, you will get the prompt to put a repository name. I will put the name dev basics, which is the same name that I used in my machine. I will leave it as a public repository. You can put it in private if you don't want anyone to see. You can control who can see the repository or not. You have on the free account of GitHub, you have a limited amount of private repositories that you can make, but usually it is well enough. You will not need to have a GitHub Pro. Don't tick any of this, don't add a README file or git ignore or choose a license, anything, because we want to upload something to a complete empty repository in GitHub, and the easiest way is just to do a complete empty repository. You can add these things later on anyway. So click on create repository, and then you get this page. This page is quite important because it gives you actually all the commands that you need to know in order to put your code into GitHub. And if we go here, we see the similar commands of the ones that we have already seen. So there is an echo to readme.md. So the first command, what it does, it just creates a readme file in your local directory, and it just says dev basics. And then you have the git init, which you already used, the git add, which we already used. In this case, it would only add the readme.md. This we can replace with git add dot, and then we will add all the things that we have in our local repository in our machine. Then our commit command, which we used already. Then this is a new one. This is the git branch command, because as I told in the last part of the video, the local version of Git, or at least the Git version I have, uses the word master, and this has been changed in GitHub by main. So actually what you are doing here is telling it, please change the main branch, the master branch, let's call it like this, to the name main. And then you will have the same name of a branch that you have in GitHub that is needed. The next two are the part where you really synchronize your local repository with the one in GitHub. And they are, the first one is you are adding a so-called remote repository, which you call origin. This is kind of the word that is used. At the beginning, I didn't understand why origin, but it's just a way you could name it anything else. And So you add a remote, so git remote add, it's kind of, oh, hey git, add a remote location called origin, and it is placed in this URL. And the last one, you can say git push origin main. That means actually push everything that I have in my local repository into GitHub. So you could actually copy all of these and just paste them in Visual Studio Code. But since we are changing the second one, we will do it step by step. Back in Visual Studio Code, I could start, I mean, if I go through all the commands from GitHub, I would start with git init and so on, but I will not do that because we have done this already. So what I will do is I will start as if we would do a new commit. Let's say we change one more thing here, ready for GitHub, right? And then save my file, and then let's do here again git add dot, because I want to add everything that I have changed. Then git commit message ready to upload to GitHub, right? So it has changed the file, and now I can just go in and copy paste this commands from GitHub. First, I want to change to the main branch, so git branch -m main. Here's my Visual Studio Code. So here it is. Now I can paste this, hit git branch. So if I now tell git branch, it will tell me I am in the branch called main, and that's the star means that that's my main branch. And now I can go to the next command and say, okay, add this remote repository, which is this git remote add origin. Copy that one, paste it here. And now the local Git knows that, okay, I want to have a remote repository. This could be outside of GitHub. This could be a server somewhere, or if you have some kind of NAS at your home or whatever, you could put it there. But we are doing it with GitHub. And now I want to push everything to GitHub. So let's say git push -u. That means it is the upstream. And then origin, and I have to tell him which branch, and that is the main branch. And now when I push this, let's read what it has said. It has said, okay, after the push, enumerating 13 objects, then do some compression, some writing, and so on. In your case, if you have never uploaded anything from GitHub, from your machine to GitHub, you will get a prompt from GitHub telling you to authorize your Visual Studio Code to access GitHub. This is authorization mechanism called OAuth, which is quite useful. So because you don't have to log in every time again. So once you have authorized, you get kind of a cookie in your machine, and GitHub knows that this machine is allowed to push things into GitHub. And after you do that, you will get the same things here. And now it is everything pretty much done. So we have synchronized with GitHub. And if I go to, if I go to GitHub again, let me go there and let me reload this page. And if I go to dev basics, now I have my code text file. And if I open this is exactly the things that I have written there. And if I go to my subdirectory files, I have my other file there. And now everything is there. You have two things. You have kind of a backup if something happens in your machine, and you can also share this with other people. So you are pretty much done. And now you can really start working with all these things. That was it from my first introductory video. I hope you liked it. I hope it can help the one or the other. If you like it, please leave some comments. You can subscribe. I don't have a very active channel, but if you want to subscribe, it's of course quite a good thing. Thanks for listening, and see you another time. One more thing, guys. Please let me know in the comments what you would like to here as the next video. Some of the options would be, one, we could go a bit more in depth in Visual Studio Code and show what are the things that are there. Or second would be a bit more Git, showing how to pull things out of GitHub, stuff like that. And the third, which is the one that I prefer, is to go through a small selection of languages, programming languages that I think are worth to know. And what are the uses, like JavaScript, Python, whatever. There are some of them that I know. There are many more which I don't know. Just look at them and have a small intro on that. Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.